This is Psalm 77. Listen to the words here. I cried out to God with my voice. To God with my voice. He gave ear to me. In the day of my trouble, I sought the Lord. My hand was stretched out in the night without ceasing. My soul refused to be comforted. I remembered God and was troubled. I complained and my spirit was overwhelmed. You hold my eyelids open. I am so troubled that I cannot speak. I have considered the days of old, the years of ancient times. I call to remembrance my song in the night. I meditate within my heart, and my spirit makes diligent search. Will the Lord cast off forever? And will he be favorable no more? Has his mercy ceased forever? Has his promise failed forevermore? Has God forgotten to be gracious? Has he in anger shut up his tender mercies? And I said, this is my anguish. But I will remember the years of the right hand of the Most High. I will remember the works of the Lord. Surely I will remember the wonders of old. I will also meditate on your work and talk of your deeds. Your way, O God, is the sanctuary, who is so great a God as our God. You are the God who does wonders. You have declared your strength among the people, and you have with your arm redeemed your people, the sons of Jacob and Joseph. The waters saw you, O God. The waters saw you. They were afraid. The depths also trembled. The clouds poured out water. The sky sent out a sound. Your arrows also flashed about. The voice of your thunder was in the whirlwind. The lightnings lit up the world. The earth trembled and shook. Your way was in the sea. Your path is the great waters, and your footsteps were not known. You lead your people like a flock by the hand of Moses and Aaron. Amen. We will remember God's hand stretched out to us. And that's where we're going to come tonight. We're going to talk about memories a little bit tonight. I am coming to you from Buena Vista. I'm here in my grandparents' house. This was my grandparent Keiser's house, my dad's parents, who I called my granddaddy and my grandma. This was their house. And as I come in this house, I have so many memories. This chair right here, this green high back chair, is where my grandfather sat. And my grandfather was one of the finest men of integrity that I have ever known and I have ever seen lived out. And I just have so many memories of him and the way he lived his life. And coming into this physical place, coming into this house, it just brings back a flood of memories about that. And one of those is this little desk right here. Now this desk right here, I came across a few nights ago moving some furniture around in our house. This desk, it's just a little roll top desk, a little pine desk. It's really not much to it. Hopefully you guys can see it. Just a little pine desk right here. All right, and this desk was my grandmother's desk. She had this desk when she was a child, when she was a little child, and she played with this desk. And so then, when my sister and I were growing up as kids, we would play with this little desk here in my grandmother's house. And then when Reagan was born, when Reagan came along, my grandmother gave it to Reagan. And Reagan played with this desk. So this desk serves as a physical memory for me. When I look at this desk, I have a physical memory of my grandparents, but also of something that happened. And one of those physical memories is I would come into this very place right here, in this living room with my grandparents, and I would open up this desk and pull out this little drawer, and I would set my Bible right here, and I would preach. As a 8, 9, 10-year-old boy, I would come in this living room, take this desk, and I would preach to my grandmother and my grandfather. And I can remember even getting on them if they began to talk or something. I would tell them to be quiet because I was speaking, I was preaching. But many times I would do that. And you know, my dad remembers that. My dad kind of jokes about it. My mom and dad would come by and I'd pull this old desk out and I would preach from this desk. So this desk, this old pine cheap desk, if you will, it's not much to it, but it holds a physical memory when I see it. And I think about physical memories in the Bible. Let's go to Joshua. If you have your Bibles tonight, let's go to Joshua chapter 4. And we're going to talk about some memories and some physical memories and what those memories serve, okay? So let's go to Joshua chapter 4. Now, Joshua's a fine man. I have studied Joshua a few times. We've been through the book of Joshua in our Sunday school class. And matter of fact, before these restrictions were in, we're actually going through the book of Joshua in our Fridays group. I love the book of Joshua. I love the leadership, the guidance that Joshua gives. He's such a strong leader, just a great man. So anyone that wants to study leadership, read Joshua, study Joshua and how he conducted himself. Joshua, as we pick up in the book of Joshua, is 90 years old. And he has just taken over for Moses. Moses has passed on, and so now Joshua, he has been trained by Moses. He's been brought up by Moses for this purpose, to lead the Israelites across the Jordan River. You remember the story. The Israelites have been in the wilderness, and so now they've come out of the wilderness, and now it's Joshua's turn to take them across the Jordan River. And so as we pick up in chapter 4, here's what I want you to do. I want you to think about you being one of those Israelites. Now, the book of Numbers tells us that there's about 2 million people encamped there getting ready to cross the Jordan River. So put yourself in just one person in all of those people waiting to get on the other side of the river, okay? And a guy comes up to you and he says, hey, prepare yourself, for in 3 days we're gonna go across that river. And so you glance over and you see this river, which is it's at flood stage and it's raging. And you're probably going to think to yourself, you know, this river is flooded. How are we going to do this? How is this going to happen? I'm sure you would have a lot of uncertainty about how are all these people going to get across that river? How is this going to happen? And if you remember, it takes a step of faith. That's kind of the core of chapter 3. That it takes a step of faith. That Joshua orders those priests to take the Ark of the Covenant and to go out there and take that first step of faith. Someone just had to put their foot in the water. And so that happens. Okay, and the water stopped. God stops the water. And so again, you're one person that's now walking across that dry land to the other side. And you get to the other side of the river and you're looking back and now you're thinking about all of this stuff that happened, about how all these people got over and how the water stopped and how Joshua organized it and got everybody across. And so that's where we pick up in chapter 4 of Joshua. Let's look there. Chapter 4 of Joshua. Everyone is just got on the other side, and the Lord commands Joshua to do something here in chapter 4. So we pick up in Joshua chapter 4, verse 4. Look at what it says. Then Joshua called the 12 men whom he had appointed from the children of Israel, one man from every tribe. And Joshua said to them, cross over before the ark of the Lord, your God, into the midst of the Jordan, and each of you take up a stone on his shoulder, according to the number of the tribes of the children of Israel, that this may be a sign among you when your children ask in time to come, saying, what do these stones mean to you? Then you shall answer them that the waters of the Jordan were cut off before the ark of the covenant of the Lord, when it crossed over the Jordan. And the waters of the Jordan were cut off. And these stones shall be a memorial to the children of Israel forever. How about that? God was telling Joshua and teaching Joshua how to show those children, how to show God's people his character and what God did for them. And so if you pick up there in verse 19, Joshua does just that. He orders the people to take those stones, and look at what he does there in verse 19. Now the people come up from the Jordan on the 10th day of the first month, and they camped in Gilgal on the east border of Jericho. I don't have Harry to tell me those names there. You need to help me out, Harry. Verse 20, and those 12 stones which they took out of Jordan, Joshua set up in Gilgal. Then he spoke to the children of Israel, saying, when your children ask their fathers in time to come, saying, what are these stones? Then you shall let your children know, saying, Israel crossed over this Jordan on dry land. For the Lord your God dried up the waters of the Jordan before you until you had crossed over, as the Lord your God did to the Red Sea, which he dried up before us until we had crossed over, that all the people of the earth may know the hand of the Lord, that it is mighty, that you may fear the Lord your God forever. And so Joshua carries out the command of God, and they take those stones from the middle of the Jordan River, and those tribes, those men, they carry them to the other side, and they pile them up. And so just imagine years later that you were one of those kids that saw all of this happen, that got across to the other side. And now, years later, you and your boy are taking a little trip down the Jordan River, do a little fly fishing there on the bank of the Jordan River, and your son asked you about those stones. Dad, what are those stones? What do those mean? And you had that opportunity to tell him that memory, to tell him about the faithfulness of God, to tell him how God provided for you and God's character, that he promised those things to you to get you to the other side safely. Well, friends, I want to encourage you to build some memorial stones today. First of all, think about what memorial stones you already have in your home. Now, they could be a journal. They could be maybe a picture, a painting, maybe a souvenir you got on a vacation, something that you remember, that your friends or your family talk about. Maybe it's a family Bible. When your kids walk by, they may ask you about it. And maybe it's just an event. Maybe it's something you did during a period as a family, an activity or something that comes up as a memory, and you remember those things. So what memorials do you have in the past? But now, which ones are you making? Right now, we are in a time of uncertainty. Right now, we are sitting on the banks of uncertainty, looking across a river of pandemonium, and we have no idea how we're going to get to the other side. We look across that river right now, and it looks impossible. It looks flooded. I don't know how we're going to get there. I've got no idea how we're going to get to the other side. But God says he's going to get us to the other side. He knows what's going on, and he has a plan in this time that we're dealing with. All this stuff that's going on, all this uncertainty and unknown. Look, God's got a plan. He's going to get us to the other side. And so what memorials are we going to make right now that our kids will be able to come back and see that? Just like when I walked in this house, in my grandparents' house, the flood of memories that I've had just sitting here a few moments in meditation, getting ready for this devotion. What memories are they going to have? How you stayed faithful during this time. How you stayed faithful knowing that God was going to provide for you during this time. The Proverbs 22, Proverbs, 22:6, I believe it is. Let's look right there real quick. Proverbs 22:6. Train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. It is so important to train our kids right now about God's character and about how he's going to be there for us and how he's going to remain faithful for us. We've got to do that right now, and we can do that with those memorials. Okay, so I'm going to ask you that first. What memorials are you building right now? And again, they don't have to be physical. You don't have to stack rocks in your front door and out your front yard and say, okay, kids, remember them rocks? That's when we had this, this Cobra thing. I'm not asking you to do something physical. It may be something you do together as a family, that your kids will come back to that memory. And again, it may be a painting, it may be a souvenir, a piece of art or something. But it's going to remind your kids, it's going to give that memory of how you were faithful. Now, here's the other thing, though. That memorial, if you remember, on the banks of the Jordan, it stood there that anybody could see it. So I'm going to encourage you to do that too. As you're making memorials, can other people see those? Is it a way that you react in this situation of uncertainty? And maybe someone asks you about that. How do you have so much confidence in these times of uncertainty? Well, let me tell you. Let me tell you about my God. Let me tell you how I have that faith that He's going to pull me through. So I would encourage you as you're making these memories, as you're making these memorials, make sure that others can see them. This is a time to share that good news and that provision of God that He is going to provide for us. And there's one more thing, friends. Now listen. This part right here fired me up when I got to praying on it and meditating on it. Right now we are in a time of uncertainty. We don't know what tomorrow's going to hold. Our government, our leaders are trying to figure all this stuff out, and there's a lot of uncertainty. And as we look across that river, there's a promise over there. Okay, now that's a short-term promise. This is going to pass. In some months to come, all this is going to be worked out, and there's going to be a new normal, if you will. Things are going to be different. They're going to change. Some things are going to go back to the way they were, but that's a short-term river crossing. Okay, there's a long-term river crossing. And Jesus has given us a promise, okay? So even if we get to focusing on the things of today and the uncertainty of today, Jesus has made us a promise. Just like God made a promise to Abraham that He's going to give him a promised land, Jesus has made us a promise too, that He's going to give us a promised land. Look with me in John chapter 14. John chapter 14. I love these words. Let not your heart be troubled. Let me read that one more time, especially because my eyes got to get adjusted when I look down at the page here. Let not your heart be troubled. Listen, let not your heart be troubled. This is Jesus talking. You believe in God, believe also in me. In my Father's house there are many mansions. If it were not so, I would not have told you. I go to prepare a place for you. And if I go to prepare a place for you, I will come again and receive you to myself, that where I am, there you may be also. And where I go, you know, and the way you know. Praise be to God that Jesus is preparing a place for me and for you right now. He is preparing a promised land. Let's look at what that promised land. He revealed some of this to John. Remember there in John, in the Revelation, chapter 21. Oh, listen to these words right here. Now I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth had passed away, and there was no more sea. Then I, John, saw the holy city, the new Jerusalem, come down out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride adorned from her husband. And I heard a loud voice from heaven saying, Behold, the tabernacle of God is with men, and He will dwell with them, and they shall be His people. God Himself will be with them, and their God. And God will wipe away every tear from their eyes. There shall be no more death, no sorrow, nor crying. There shall be nor pain, for the former things have passed away. Friends, when you look across that river of life of uncertainty, remember God has that promise of new when you put your faith and your trust into Him. And so we need to build those memorials now. We need to show them to our kids that God has that same promise. It's available to them, and it's available to everybody that will listen to that. Okay, friends, it is very special for me to come to you tonight from this very special place, this place of memories and memorials. And I would encourage you and tonight and the days to come to gather your family around and make those memorials now. Make those memories now of how you reacted during these days of uncertainty and how you relied on God's character and His faithfulness to get you through. Teach that to your children now.